Well, welcome to Forever Sports. This is Lukhanyo Chongweni, and I'll be keeping you company as we preview the British and Irish Lions versus SAA game. All right, and I think, for those who sort of be joining us for the first time, all right, Forever Sport is everything about sport. All right, so today we're just going to be looking at the SA versus British and Irish Lions, and I can't wait to get going because indeed I have a couple of special guests with me who will be joining me a bit later on. So before we get started, maybe get a couple of beverages, all right, couple of warm beverages as we start. Not too far away, right, as I just wait for my guests to join me this afternoon. But what a treat it's been so far, right, in terms of sport. I think it's just been a festival of sport, right. We've had plenty of sports going around the world, right, and unfortunately it did not come home for the boys, all right. But we've had Euros, we've had Wimbledon, we've had SA versus Ireland, which is also currently still playing. We've had England versus Pakistan with the cricket, right? And equally, we've had a very interesting and entertaining West Indies versus Australia game, right? So and I must say, I think a special shout out to Grant. I think a special shout out there to Chris Gale, who recently just got 14,000 test runs, right? I think that is pretty impressive, right? But we're not too far away, all right? If you're new to the channel, all right, please do subscribe, all right? Please do like and subscribe as we do, what promises to be a very good series. We've got Grant there. Grant, welcome again, mate. It's good to have you, all right? It's good to have you join us. All right, please, could you just maybe, for those who are here, right, just comment on the comment section who you think and what your predictions are for the British and Irish Lions series. Right, we shouldn't be too far away right now. Our guests are about to join us. Right, as I said, I'm very excited for today's chat. I think you are three fantastic rugby brains that I've had the opportunity, to sort of, speak rugby about, but more importantly, I think also just, having played a bit of rugby with them, right? We've got our first guest up, Tyrone Rankin, who is the director of rugby, at Queen's College, right? Ty, welcome. Thanks for joining us. How are you, bud?
Fine, and you. Thanks for having me again, man.
No, sweet. Also joining us is Ulungisani Dube, all right, who's also a director of rugby at Penryn High. They're up in Nelspruit, bro. You've left us in the Eastern Cape. How are you doing, Dube?
How's it, man? How's it, Ty? Thanks for having me. I had to explore opportunities and grow myself. So I'm based on this side now. Definitely don't miss the cold in the Eastern Cape.
I know I'm wrapped up. I thought I'm actually going to have my Springbok jersey on, but not a chance. It's too cold, yeah. And our third guest is Craig Hatches, a man who I've got the privilege of working with at St. Andrews. Craig, hello, how are you?
Hi, Mr. T. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I know, all good. Thanks for joining us. I think just before we jump on sort of the rugby stuff, right, Ty, I know you're quite a keen tennis player back in the days, right? Wimbledon just concluded this weekend. Your thoughts? Could Djokovic arguably end up as the most decorated tennis player in history with the most Grand Slam?
I think he's going to be the GOAT. He has to be. He's still going strong. He makes it look so easy. So he's definitely going to. I think he'll take over. He's obviously going for that Grand Slam. So we'll see what happens in the last Open of the year, but I think he'll get it this year. He's been very, very.
It seems as though he's the man possessed. Craig, unfortunately, the boys couldn't bring it home. What do you make of the Euros? Summary of the Euros.
What a pity. I really felt for the boys, and especially for Gareth Southgate. Just a phenomenal journey over the last sort of 4 to 5 years with the FA and the team that is built up. But what an effort, what a tournament. Italy deserved it, I think, on the night and over the span of the 3 years where they've been in spectacular form. So thoroughly deserved winners of the cup. But I feel for England. I feel for them. I really wanted them to take this one.
Yeah, but one just has to just think how the English media would have been at the moment. Yeah, but Dube, maybe just to start us off, what are your earliest recollections of, British and Irish Lions, what it means for the rugby fraternity as a whole? And do you perhaps have any memories from the 2009 tour? I know you were quite youngsters at the time, but anything stick out?
Geez, that was 12 years ago. 2009, I think I was actually 15. I remember my days at Graham College as an under 15. It was so far back, but what I can think of right now is, that last kick Mornay Steyn had to kick, and that famous try from Jacques Ferrier running over Ronan O'Gara. Those are probably my biggest highlights of the tour. Look, it's really unfortunate to obviously to be having to be hosting the tournament or the tour. Under the circumstances that we're living in right now. And it's so sad that we can't have fans. I mean, for me, I almost pull out my hair every day, not, watching the games and actually hearing the guys communicate on D. It's lovely as a coach to hear and watch that. But obviously, you wish the crowd was there. I mean, just the other day, we watched the game against the Sharks. I mean, imagine that Sharks team had a crowd backing them. And I think it would have been such an awesome game. But it's just so weird. I mean, to host this tournament and not have any supporters at all. For me, it's just, I don't know. It's you're stuck in 2 months. Should have they postponed it or cancelled it due to that? But We all, we haven't been watching rugby for a while now, besides the New Zealand competition. But I'm actually glad to have the rugby back on.
Sure, yeah. And I think, Craig, if I could chuck it your way, I think a touch older than us, maybe what did it mean for the country just to have the British and Irish Lions, especially considering that we were world champions, right? And then the British and Irish Lions were not sure. Do you have recollection just in terms of the magnitude and how big the tour is for the country, right? Maybe you have more of holistic, memories about the tour rather than just what happened on the field.
Yes, there are a couple of sort of social issues, and sort of, as you mentioned them, holistic country issues that took place at the time. I think if we think back about the journey Jake White had with the Boks, eventually then winning the 2007 World Cup, something that we particularly needed at that time as a country, because that particular team went through a really difficult time, nationally and internationally, and for them to have pulled it off was just spectacular. Also, the Bulls, doing really well in that year, and when the Bulls are strong, the Boks are strong. But I think what stands out for me, and this is personal to me, but I think personal to many younger men at that time and younger boys, is that Peter de Villiers was the head coach of the Boks. So dynamics changed within SA Rugby. They were sort of imagery leaders, people that sort of looked, for me at that time, somebody that looked like me, that spoke like me, that acted like me, but was just as passionate about this game as I am. So I think that was the major shift for me, just seeing a coach of color taking control of the Boks, and coaching the team, and then for the team to do really well. I remember, that first try the Boks scored in the first test. I remember exactly where I was, the forwards just coming around the corner and John Smith just smashing the Lions, and scoring that first try, and, the celebration that Peter had and we had as a country was just a combination of, the dominance that we've got as a country, this absolute bruteness of our pack, and, this sort of new fired up passion of a coach of color that matches, that sort of bruteness of our forwards that they brought to the test. So yeah, socially, I think that meant a lot to our country. Our country came out of a difficult patch economically in 2008 too. So we really needed, to beat the Lions in 2009. So last thing, just the small little moments, the provincial games that you watched as a kid because you couldn't go and watch the test match. The Lions practicing at within your province, and they opened it up for you to go and watch them and see them practice. They were quite open, to also give back to the country, and they were quite open to share ideas and share signatures, and welcome. So they were very welcome to what they brought to the country. So those smaller moments, I'm sure if you speak to somebody that followed rugby at that particular time, any young boy, that's something that I clearly remember as well. So I think, many social benefits that we had from them being here.
Sure. No, thanks for the Craig. Ty, we did for a moment speak about what it meant to you, sort of your earliest memories over the weekend, but care to share maybe with those who didn't hear, just sort of what are your earliest recollections, right, of the tour, what it meant, but also maybe perhaps you can go further, right, because we currently are a country that's bleeding at the moment, right? What do you think the impact of such a series, right? We've seen Lukhanyo speak about it, Uzwandile speak about just the role that Springboks have played just during our history, right? So yeah, what are your sort of your thoughts, your earliest recollection, and possibly what it means in this pandemic that we find ourselves in as a sort of the world, but in particular as South Africa?
Yeah, so for me, I think the memory I have is watching the Southern Spears play the Lions in PE, and that was the beginning of sort of EP rugby back on the rise. And if you can think back to those times and what it became in 2013-14, that was sort of the start. If you look at the times now in our country and what we're going through, one thing that we forget and we don't often speak of is when the Lions do come to South Africa and other countries, but particularly here, they become very accessible. It was mentioned now. They do a lot of coaching clinics. They do a lot of community outreach. The Springboks get onto that as well, and everyone becomes more accessible. And when you're meeting your heroes, imagine if now 2-3 weeks ago, for example, if Sia Kolisi and Lukhanyo were in places like Durban in the communities, it just gives people a whole new hope. So it is sad that we don't have access to them in that sense. But I think, if you look at what the players are talking about now openly, how they can give hope again and everything, I think that's quite special. And that just shows you the magnitude of this tour. I mean, we only speak about giving hope when we're playing a World Cup. If we're now talking about in the Lions series, then clearly it's something that's quite big. But the Lions series is special. Once every 12 years, we will definitely remember this tour. There's so much going on. There's so much happening in our country, in the world, and it's something that's just so special. So you watch all the behind the scenes videos and everything like that. I just think that we miss out a lot on not getting them access to them. But I think if our Springboks do well now, they definitely will put a smile on people's faces and show, we're stronger together. If we unite, we can do it. A thing about the Lions series and something I've always thought about is we talk about the Springboks the Lions being underdogs. I mean, for me, the Lions can't be an underdog. You got the best players forward in one country. So the Springboks and whoever they play is underdogs. And we at the moment as a country are sort of the underdogs. No one's backing us to come out of what's happening. So I think there's a lot that can go into it, a lot of hope that can come out of it, just like 2009. So I'm very, very excited for tomorrow because that's when it's pretty much starting.
Yeah, I think tomorrow is bold in some circles as the first unofficial test. I think just quickly going to the comments, I see Stevie P saying the Peter David documentary was class. I don't know if you gentlemen have seen the Fed to the Lions, right? Special for those who haven't checked it out. I think it's quite powerful, right? And I think just building on sort of the conversation that Craig has sort of started going to sort of Tyrone, just a lot was made out in terms of the management, first and foremost, just Pit de Villiers in terms of the sort of rugby he wants to play, but equally the British and Irish Lions management. Now, fast forward to 2021, right? We've got Jacques Nineba versus Warren Gatland, right? Let's start there, because what tends to happen is that coaches tend to set the tone of sort of how your team will play. So I don't know, Dube, do you want to maybe have a crack there first? What are we expecting from Jacques? Like, what are you expecting from Jacques in terms of just our approach and how we go about the game, at least the series?
It's a pretty difficult question in the sense that Jacques, we haven't seen Jacques as a coach, as a head coach. We know we've seen him under Rusty's wing, working as his defense coach. I mean, they've always worked together. So this is actually Jacques' first real gig, first opportunity as head coach. So especially at the highest seat. So it's actually going to be very, very exciting. Obviously, with he's got a very good management or good team around him that's going to be very, very supportive. He's got the likes of Rassie Erasmus, who's been there. I mean, they've worked together throughout their coaching careers. And then you've got someone like Dion Davids, Mzwandi Lestic. So he's got a very good team around him. I think I'm very excited for him and the Springbok team. So I really do back him. And then you look at someone like Warren Gatland, who's got a very good coaching record. I mean, he's seen as a legend. He's coached the British and Irish Lions. He was here in 2009, coaching under Sir Ian McGeechan. So those are all legends, and for him, he's coached Wales as well, and he's done fairly well with the Welsh side as well. So it's looking at his cards that he's pulled. I mean, he chose a very strong side that's going to match us physically. Which is going to match our kicking game. If you look at the individual players, he's got players that can create something out of and try and exploit our weaknesses. So I think he's got a couple of good cards under his sleeve there. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm very excited for the arm wrestle.
Sure. Craigo, want to jump on there? Ty? Craig? Just Nineba versus Gatland, just from the management perspective first, before we actually crack down and look at the two sides.
I remember something that's I think that's applicable to 2021, but that was said in 2009 with Gatland being the assistant coach. I think he got the opportunity to lead the team in the third test, as preparation for the handover of what will come next, and just give him a feel. And I remember when he spoke to the guys before the game, they had a little clip in one of the DVD series that I watched where he told the players the only way you beat the Boks, you use stronger words than that, but it essentially came down to the only way you beat the Boks is on the scoreboard. So he's come, I think, with a mentality of being very scoreboard driven. And if you look with who he has surrounded himself, Neil Jenkins brings that tradition, obviously as a Lions player, but also as a vastly experienced Lions kicking coach and actually counter-attacking coach too. And then he's got a little bit of newness, and a little bit of innovation through Townsend that has done phenomenal things in Scotland. So I think, they've actually brought a little bit more diversity in terms of their structure than we've got at the moment. I think we've stuck with our sort of status quo. We don't want to change too many things that has worked in the past. So I don't think there'll be a significant difference in, the kind of messages and the kind of strategy that Ninaba explains to the players and their objectives to what Rassie did. But I think there's a little bit more diversity in the Lions camp. And I think I just get the sense that they've got an all-roundedness to them, but we all know, that first scrum or that first line out, that first maul changes all those plans. So I think it's the diversity versus with what has worked is going to be a really good challenge. It doesn't make, just because the Lions have got a bit of diversity doesn't give them the edge. It's just different.
Yeah, I think just to add on that, interestingly, sort of in terms of when we look at the preparation of the Lions, right? The first two games, they went with the 5-3 traditional split, but the last game, and also including this game coming up, they've gone with the 6-2 split, right? Ty, to you, right? Gatland has spoken a lot about, trying to run and ensure that, he's playing with flair. He's going to try and run the Springboks ragged, right? We can see it from the selections that he's made, right? What do you think? Do you think he's actually stopped for a moment and reevaluated, right? Or is that what we should be expecting, right? Just judging from the split on the bench, because the bench does sort of tend to tell you the attitude of a coach when it comes game day. So what are your thoughts on that, Ty?
Yeah, so for me, Gatland's one of the best in the business to painting a picture and telling a lie. So, you've got to be very, very careful of what you read into it. I don't know if, I'm sure we've all watched the 2000 and when they went to the All Blacks in 2017, and they're playing all their provincial games off 10, and then all of a sudden, they say, well, in the test, we're going to play off 9. So you've got to be very careful what you buy into. But with that being said, I do think if you've watched the last couple of games, the Lions have played this wide attack shape, and they letting the ball go, and you're thinking to yourself, sure, but how are we going to contain them? But I can bet you now that come test time, we're probably going to see a little bit of a different strategy. You saw it against the Sharks, they played a little bit tighter, and there were a couple of errors there. So I think that they're probably going to go with that 6-2 split to match the Springboks. If you look now at their forwards on the bench, their loose trio that's currently playing tomorrow against ours, that's going to be probably the matchup of the day for me. Faletau, Curry, and I think it's Navini. They all playing against our loose trio, Peter Steff, Jasper Vista. Those guys are going to be massive. So I think that the 6-2 split will probably happen from both sides because of the fact that Elliot Daly came out quite nicely playing at 13, so he offers you a bit off the bench. Farrell probably going to play at 12 then, because he then covers 10. So he's shown his hand a little bit if that's the way he's going to go. But to match the Springboks, I think you're going to have that extra forward on the bench, because it's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. Gatland's a smart man. I don't think he'll play all his cards straight away. That's why probably he doesn't want to play a Springbok A game again on Saturday. So very, very gamesmanship is happening straight away between him and Rusty and John. So it's exciting.
We'll certainly get into the matchups now very, very soon. But just quickly, gentlemen, what have you made of the British and Irish Lions sort of so far, right? Tyrone did touch on in terms of just how they've played, how they've adapted their playing style, right, from this expansive, trying to run everything to we saw it for a moment against the Sharks where they tried to go a bit tighter. But generally speaking, obviously keeping in mind that they've been playing our provincial side, who are in the main kibs, right? But when a team is there, you still have to beat them, right? What have your thoughts been just generally? Maybe you'll start with Craig this time, just in terms of, where the Lions are at. What are your thoughts, right, going into this first unofficial test match? Because tomorrow is when it actually really starts, if we're being honest. All right. So, what are your thoughts been so far?
Yes, I think the first couple of moments, whether that was in training or matches, it's just been all about emotion. So, the first sort of feeling that I get when I see the Lions, and their first couple of interactions and the first couple of phases, their first contacts, first crumbs, and it's only been the first for now. I've sensed a lot of emotion, a lot of hunger. So they've brought the emotion, they've brought the intensity, and I think they've been that kind of emotion has been matched nicely with skills touches here and there. So being emotive, being intense is what they wanted to establish first, because number one, defenses still win games, but I think there's also the need to create a sense of brotherhood. I think the team probably arrived, not even arrived in South Africa. I think by the time they played Japan, there was probably a little bit of not conflict within the team, but a little bit uncertainty. We saw a lot of sort of negative emotion, players who missed out, lots of discussion, lots of gossip. So I think they wanted to bring that kind of emotion and intensity to actually get the group close together, and get them to bond, intensify, getting in terms of bonding with one another. Rugby-wise, I've seen a lot. I've mentioned this before, but I've seen a lot of the Chiefs, the Waikato Chiefs in New Zealand, in the Lions. We just need to track back to see where Gatland came from. I think he's used New Zealand and especially the Chiefs as his sort of Lions lab. There's certainly a couple of the post set piece defensive structures, definitely with regard to the outside backs, how he's just changed them around for this test again, referring to the outside backs as a group of outside backs rather than specialized position. So I've seen a lot of the Chiefs in this Lions, and it's going to be really interesting to see if that kind of mentality gets maintained, the micro skills that they've adopted from the Chiefs, whether that gets maintained when they play the first test.
Sure. Yeah, I think, if anything, I was quite impressed with how he used Simmons. I think there was sort of just behind that shacking could be very dangerous if there are holes, but obviously you're playing against arguably the best defensive team in the world, all right? I think just maybe let's move over to South Africa and just look at the preparations of South Africa. Dube, obviously, it's been a bit, chaotic, right, in terms of the Buggers not being able to actually, having a couple of COVID positive tests, all right? What have you made of so we only have really one game to sort of work from, but what do you think of the South African preparations? What were your thoughts sort of in the first game? Yeah, what's your feeling with the pots?
At the moment, I think I watched briefly your previous interview with Tyrone, and I like what he said there. He mentioned something about Ninabe and Zwande Stek would be and Deon Davids would be very, very prepared for this. I'm pretty sure the guys are very well conditioned. It's just a matter of the guys coming together again. We all know, we've seen it in the World Cup when those guys, they had only 18 months together as a team, and you look at what they've achieved to winning the World Cup. But we know what happens when those guys put on that jumper, that green and gold jumper together. They just click, I think having these overseas players come back, like your Faf de Klerks, and having someone like Jasper Wiese come into the team as well, your Joseph Dwebers, those guys who are fairly new as well in the team, it's going to be interesting to see if they can fit the mold. But I have no doubt that your senior players would probably put their hands up and light the spark. And once that spark is on, I know for a fact the Springboks will be like a house on fire. I'm very confident in their preparations. We haven't seen much behind the scenes, any videos. They've just quietly gone about their business. But I'm very, very quietly confident in their preparation. If you listen to their interviews, if you listen to Russ's interviews, they are very confident in the way they speak and in what they're doing in their camp, which is exciting. However, there's obviously been disruptions with obviously players testing positive in the team. But you know what? Looking at the depth of our squad, for once in a while, I think we've got a lot of youngsters in the team that can put their hands up and can actually step up to the plate and actually perform. And I was looking, we actually have like 3 amazing hookers. You've got the Malcolm Marks, Bongi Munambi, and you've got Joseph Dwebe, who's an exciting player who's waiting for his opportunity. So you've got you got players like your Apelele Fasis, those type of players that are hungry to burst onto the scene. So I am very confident that there are hungry players out there who are willing to actually are hungry for an opportunity, and when they do get that opportunity, they're gonna express themselves and make the most of it. So I'm pretty sure the team buildings and in the camp would be really, really bringing everyone together. I just can't wait for tomorrow.
All right, yeah, certainly, I'm sure. Yeah, Ty, just if you may, just your thoughts around this, right? I think for me, it's not so much the game that we lost against Georgia, right, last weekend that was postponed. My fear is the lack of practice, right? And the reason why I'm asking that is, at international level, practices and that preparation behind closed doors, one could argue that it's more intense than the actual test match, right? Do you think that will be an issue, right? But you did touch on the fact that they'll be prepared, right? But I don't think they would have thought that 20 guys, for example, will test positive. So what impact could that possibly play? Just the the inability for the guys to practice and them actually having to isolate rather than being on the pitch?
Yeah, so I think the match practice and stuff like that would have been a major blow. We did touch on the youngsters coming in. And I think the big thing for me is I think practicing and stuff is all good and well. I think the big thing, and I know that Rassie sort of mentioned it, is the game time. So, we've all sort of been involved with any sort of sports team. It's all good and well to practice against the guys that know sort of the moves and know how things are. And it's a totally different ballgame when you're out in the battle of the field, and if you miss a tackle, it's a try. In practice, you can come back and, we didn't defend right. Let's try that again. And I think game fitness will be a big thing, and obviously that's what they've touched on in terms of the ability to practice. Nowadays these guys are so professional. They would have spent hours behind the laptop screens learning the playbooks, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was 1 or 2 walkthroughs within the hotel. For those guys that were sort of okay to do so. It's just putting it onto the practice field in a match situation is a totally different ball game. And playing against a different team and getting that match fitness is something you cannot replicate in a game, in a practice. Sorry. So you can try as best as you can, and I think they will be very well prepared. But I see that they'll be playing a game against the Bulls on Saturday, and I know some people don't agree with that, but it comes down to that thinking out of the box perspective that Rassie and Jacques Nienaber and the coaching staff have. I think they just want to get the guys into the park. I think that's the important thing. You must remember, when you're playing a match, your adrenaline is crazy, and after 20 minutes, your adrenaline goes away, and you got to go back onto something. At a practice, you don't have that adrenaline rush. You don't have to deal with that, the perspective of it. So it's a very, very important to try and get a match out there. But I'm sure they plan to have 2 games. They'll get one, and they're playing a lot more Springboks tomorrow than they would have wanted to. But I don't think it's a bad thing either. So I think they'll be all right. The Lions would have played 6 games by the time the series starts. We would have played 2, officially or unofficially, however you want to look at it, 2. But I think the Springboks will be all right. We're so used to the physicality that's going to be needed. I think we'll step up to the plate.
All right, fantastic. I think now, I think everyone who's tuned in is excited with actually tomorrow and what's going to happen tomorrow. So I'm just going to quickly read out the British and Irish Lions 15 for those who might have missed it. So we've got Jones at 1, 2 Owens, 3 Sinclair, 4 Itoje, 5 Henderson, 6 Navidi, 7 Curry, 8 Filatau, 9 Murray, who is the tour captain, is the captain of the side. Right, but interestingly on that, there were rumors that Alwyn Jones might actually be fit for the tour. That would be interesting, right? But we've got at 10, we've got Bigger, 11 Adams, 12 Aki, 13 Harris, 14 Reese, Zamet, 15 Watson, and then on the bench we've got Cowan Dickey, 16, 17 Vinopolo, 18 Ferguson, 19 Beard, 20 Bernie, 21 Simmons, 22 Davies, and 23 Daly. All right, I think let's start with the British and Irish Lions starting 23, right, and then we'll move to the box. Craig, your thoughts on the side? What was your first feel, right? Especially considering that we've had the 2017 British and Irish Lions captain Sam, right, saying he thinks at least 7 of these guys will be in the starting lineup. So, what are your thoughts in terms of the British and Irish Lions starting 23 effectively?
Yeah, I think a really good team. I think a really dynamic team. It looks like it lacks, like in certain departments, with the split, especially on the bench. Just the 6-2 split. No real 10 that would come on if something happens to Bigger. But I think they've got enough cover there in Murray and also in Elliot Daly. Gareth Davis is also quite dynamic. So if you look at the combination between the starting 15 and the bench, I think it's got a bit of both for me. So I think it's definitely, when you look at the back three, definitely in terms of work-ons, definitely in terms of certain players needing more time in the air or needing to develop their kicking game. So, for example, Anthony Watson at 15, that's definitely just to enhance his kicking game and to assess that. And then obviously Josh Adams on the left wing. So essentially just playing two, however you see it, two wings or two fullbacks. And I think that's also just to get Josh Adams into the air a little bit more, contesting kicks, a little bit more, box kicks a little bit more, and also for Anthony Watson to work on his counter attack. So I think a really good team. The bench, I think, is there. Because of match minutes, and game time, rather than, having to make a particular kind of impact. I think the players that are on the bench are good dynamic players, and they can certainly change the flow, the tempo, and the structure of the game. But I think if you had to go a little bit deeper and you look at the amount of minutes they've played, if you analyze their personal statistics a little bit more, I think 7 out of the 8 need more game time, So I think that's just about making sure that when we actually play the first test, we've got equal stats on almost all our players, and we can actually compare players directly, and we haven't sort of cheated a guy out of an opportunity. So I think the bigger picture for them is, yes, we want to win this, we want to do really well in this. There are certain things that we need to assess because we are confused about certain players, but it's also just about the amount of time that players need in particular positions and time that they would need on the field. So I think the objective, because it's not the first test, the objectives are a little bit better, not a little bit better, but a little bit more dynamic than what ours would be, the box would be.
Well, certainly. Any maybe comments in particular with the forwards? What do you think of the pack, starting pack? Who do you see not starting? Right, yeah. And then we'll get into the matchups, obviously, once I've sort of spoken about the SAA team, right? But just your first thoughts when you saw the lineup.
Yeah, so obviously the Lions lock pairing is probably your test pairing for them. Toji and Henderson in there. If Alan Wynne does come back, he'd probably take over from Henderson. So I think that's going to be a very, very good matchup. I know we're going to talk about the matchup just now. But, the lock pairing for me from the Lions is definitely something they're trying to maybe build a combination with. It'd be interesting to see who leads the line out there for me. Matoje does that job very, very well. If they leave it up to him, I think that would be a good idea from them. And then obviously, as I mentioned it earlier, the loose trio is something for me that's very, very good. I think it's a dynamic loose trio, sort of complements each other and gives them sort of what they need. Faletau's been there, he's been around. Tom Curry, he does well for England, and Navid is sort of new on the block, but yes, he brings you a lot. So, it'll be very interesting. For me, lastly, I think Carl Sinclair, if you look where he was, the heartbreak he suffered to now playing against the SAA side, I'm very happy for him. I like the guy as a person and a player. It'd be good to see him back on the park and getting some game time, but he's got a massive test ahead of him on Saturday. If he doesn't pass that test, tomorrow, if he doesn't pass the test, I don't see him taking part in the test series. So a lot of these guys from the Lions probably have one more chance to put their hands up, and then Saturday will be a different team with a couple of guys in, and then it's into the test. So it'll be interesting, but a very good Lions side, I think.
Sure. Dube, backline. First thoughts when you saw that backline?
I wasn't surprised, honestly. I think we touched on it earlier. They're trying to match us, obviously trying to match us physically. So I wasn't really surprised for them to go for the 6-2 split. And like you guys said, they need to have an extra forward on the bench to actually try and match us. In saying that, though, in the forwards, I would have loved to see someone like Sam Underhill in the mix. I think he would have added a lot. But looking at, I think Craig touched on it, should anything happen to Dan Biggar, I think they would be in trouble. I mean, Connor Murray has played at 10 before, but to throw him in the end, deep end like that, at that level where he hasn't been playing there very often, or we don't see him playing there often, or he hasn't played there recently, to throw him in the deep end, playing like in a test series, playing 10, it would be interesting to see how you'd control that. And obviously, they left out someone like Johnny Sexton completely out of the squad. I don't know. I like Elliot Daly, and I like Gareth Davies as well. So I think they've got players, individual players that can actually exploit our backline and exploit our weaknesses. We know Anthony Watson is also a player with an X factor that has a lot of potential to cause a great threat to our backline as well. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to see.
Sure. Yeah, let's have a look at the South African A. Right, some calling it the undercover Springbok team. Right, and 1 we've got Kitsoff, 2 Joseph Dube. Right, very excited to see him play. 3 Trevor Nyakane, 4 Yeben Etebeth. We've got at 5 Morstad, 6 Van Staden, 7 Detroit, 8 Visser, 9 de Klerk, 10 Monestein, 11 Spungosi, 12 Damien Lindi, 13 Lukhanyo who will be captaining the side. Right, 14 Kobe, 15 Vili. Right, we've got on the bench 16. We've got Marks, 17 Ostazen, 18 Koch, 19 Janssen van Rensburg, 20 Alstad, 21 Herschel Yankees. And then we've got 23 Creel, 24 Willemse is also named on the bench. And then you've got Kwagga Smith and Alton Yankees, who I think have been added as precautions, given sort of the uncertainty around the camp. Well, gentlemen, Ty, maybe we'll start with you this time around, right? What are your thoughts of that starting lineup?
Yeah, I'm unbelievably excited to see Joseph Weber play. I thought while he was at the Cheetahs, he was phenomenal.
Sure.
So excited to see him play, but I think it's a very, very good Springbok team. I was actually quite surprised, at the strength that they've made it. But then obviously with everything that's happening, I suppose they didn't have a choice. But it's a strong side, a lot of these guys played in that World Cup final. That back line, most of them have played in the World Cup. All of them, except Morne Steyn. And so it's going to be very good. But I mentioned earlier, I think our forward pack is going to be where it is. Kitsoff, I really think he needs to do a job there against Sinclair. And it's a big time for Trevor. Trevor must start in that World Cup. And I think, he can put a bit of a marker down here in this game. So I'm very excited to see what happens. I think our forward pack is phenomenal. Eben, from what I understood, is carrying a slight injury. It's good to see him back on the field with Morstad pairing up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And Van Staden in the debut, he's not a small player, he's not a small guy. So yeah, I'm just keen to see these guys out there again. And the guys coming off the bench will also add a lot of impact and flair. I think these guys are, we're sitting talking about how excited we are. You can imagine what these guys are like. They haven't played for so long. So yeah, it's a good team, and I think we're going to see the toughest match of the tour so far, without a doubt.
Sure, no, 100%. Craig, anything to add on that before we sort of jump into the matchups? I think that's sort of where also those have tuned in sort of are trying to see where exactly either team will sort of be trying to get an advantage. But your first thoughts, just in terms of the 23?
Yeah, I think first thing that comes up is just we'll be in the right areas with Steyn obviously at 10, and just the if you look at Kitsoff, the amount of fetches actually in the pack of forwards, it's just going to be about putting the Lions under pressure, turning over the ball and playing in the right areas. Using our back to play in the right areas. That's the key for me that stands out. It's a team that will get you in the right areas and execute the plan when they are in the right areas. So that's what I get in the right areas.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna sort of jump into the duels, right? I think we've got a comment from Uliolo Chongin asking, who do you think will win the midfield battle? I think both sides sort of got with the physical, right? We've got Aki and Harris, who I think are very big boys, right? Versus obviously Damian Delinde and sort of the deceptively strong Lukhanyo arm, if I may add, right? And it seems as actually he's put on a lot of muscle, right? There's something that they're doing there at the Sharks. So I'm just saying that's how they're doing the best. But yeah, Dube, what do you think in terms of that little clash? Who do you think will get the upper hand?
Look, we saw Damien de Allende's physicality in the World Cup. I think he's just phenomenal. You know, his physical presence is always felt. And you look up his matchup, Bonda Aki. He's also a very physical player. Very explosive, very elusive as well. I don't know. Maybe I might just give a biased comment and give it towards for us. But I really like Lukhanyo's communication skills in the on the outside center. So I think with our press lines and in our defense systems, I think we'll shut them down. I don't think they'll have many opportunities. I mean, Lukhanyo's communication skills and Damien's physicality will definitely be felt there, especially on attack. So I would give it to us.
Sure. So, Craig, there we've got Dube saying he'll give it to South Africa. What in particular do you perhaps think will be the defining sort of the added advantage that the Springboks sort of have over the Lions, or vice versa, if you think the Lions have got a slightly stronger midfield? What is that difference? What will that point of difference be in that particular duo in the midfield?
Yeah, I certainly think time on the field and time at that particular intensity, whether that lasts the whole game or whether it's just for the first 20 minutes for our boys to sort of get into that kind of speed and get into that kind of intensity. I think so. Time for me, is going to be something that I'll give the Lions the upper hand of. I think Aki has been phenomenal, and Chris Harris, as he's very aggressive, but he's got an explosive speed that nobody sort of understands. He's also a really good defender. He makes it really difficult for you to get the ball wide. So he tackled, he defends really well from the outside in. And I think, I'm also a really good defender, but I think the combination between the absolute rawness, and the strength of Aki in terms of his defense, and Harris being a little bit street smart, I think they're better defenders as a pair as well. So I'll certainly give them, the defensive, the structural defensive pair of a 12 and a 13. I definitely think the Lions are a little bit stronger in terms of that. Their weapon is certainly with Aki there, certainly the ball carrying ability, but we've got two phenomenal ball carriers, so the Boks win that one easily. But I think tackling together, I think those two are a little bit stronger than what we've got at the moment. Whether that will still be the case if we have to select the same pairs come the second test or the third test, the deciding test might shift and it might be different. But I think for this one, they'll just be a little bit better organized when it comes to the midfield defense.
Sure. Ty, do you think they'll go Aki, Harris first official test, or will they go Farrell, Aki, Farrell, Harris? What you're thinking? Farrell, Daly. What are you sort of thinking there in terms of the midfield from the British and Irish Lions? So I think South Africa is pretty set.
I think, I don't know. I think, I like what Craig said there. I think Aki's been phenomenal in this series so far. He's really put his hand up, and I think he knows that a guy like Farrell can play 12. So I think he's definitely put his hand up. Farrell on Saturday was phenomenal when he was on the field. So I don't know. I personally feel that they're still a bit undecided about it. So it'll be interesting to see how we go. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Farrell playing 12 on Saturday, Aki playing 12 today, and then they select from there. For me, I'm very undecided as to what they go. If you do look at this Lions side, Connor and Dan Bigger, the two pivots there with the two fullbacks at the back three, I'm probably going to say that they're going to kick maybe a bit more in this game than the previous couple. But as for the centre pairing, it's up in the air for me. Sure. I think if Aki can put his hand up now, I think he's got a chance here to really say, I want that 12 jersey for the Test series, because we know what Chris Harris offers. He's been very, very good as well. So I'm a bit on the fence there. Sorry about that, but it's a tough one to call.
Sure. Yeah. No. Exactly. I think given the time, right, the fact that Damien and Lukhanyo haven't played, right, since lifting the World Cup, and Aki, I think, was also phenomenal in the Six Nations. I think was one of the better players. But let's go to the much anticipated. I think just the So on the comment section, maybe you can just let us know who do you think the starting center pairing will be for the Lions, right? And as we move sort of through the team, all right, let us know who do you think sort of will be the British and Irish Lions starting lineup come the first Test match, right? Let's go to the loose trio. I think a lot has been made of the loose trio, all right. We've got Van Staden, Detroit, and Vissa for South Africa. Let's maybe start there, right? As compared to the British and Irish Lions. Yeah, Dube, what's your thoughts around that? Who do you think will gain, will have the advantage, right? Who do you think is just a better loose trio?
Look, mate, we all know South African rugby, what we pride ourselves in. We pride ourselves in our physicality. So Russ has gone with big, strong Afrikaans forwards there, Lucy's. So I think that's exciting. I mean, you look at a youngster like Jasper Vissa, who has been playing very, very well for the Leicester Tigers overseas. So, and we saw when he came on, I think he's one of those guys that you want to mold when Dwayne eventually retires, and mold and nurture his talent. I mean, he'll be definitely a force to be reckoned with in the future. So I think having him at 8 is very exciting. And then we obviously know Pieter-Steph du Toit, his work rate is phenomenal as well. So we know his tackle count will be very, very high on Saturday. And then to give someone an opportunity like Marco van Staden, who's had a phenomenal season for the Bulls as well, I think he'll definitely be hungry. He'll want his presence to be felt as well, his physical presence. He'll want to get over that ball. So it's looking at that loose trio pack. Someone like Tom Curry, like I said earlier, I would have loved to see someone like Sam Underhill. I mean, we saw in the World Cup final how phenomenal those two worked together. But I think having Tom Curry and Naviri competing there, so I think we'll slightly have the upper hand. We definitely have the upper hand.
Sure. Yeah. Craig, anything to touch on, add on from a Springbok perspective, loose trio?
I think set pieces where we want to take the game. Those Pieter-Steph and Vissa, and also Marco at certain stages offer so much more come line out time, whether it's a 4-man, 5-man, or full line out. So if the game gets nudged towards set pieces, then we've got the upper hand. If it opens up a little bit, and the work rate intensifies, Pieter-Steph has got a phenomenal work rate and he's really dynamic. But I think when the game opens up, and we sort of in between the tight loose the whole time, I think that Lions loose trio gets across the park. They make big hits in open play, and they sort of like they enjoy the game opening up a little bit more. Faletau strives on that. So if it's more of a tight loose game, Lions, and I think by quite a margin in terms of the loose three as a collective, but when it gets nudged towards set pieces, structural plays, then we'll hurt them and we'll get the better of them.
Yeah. Ty, British and Irish Lions with trio, were you excited to see? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I agree with Craig. I think it's going to be a great battle. If it's going to be tight, if they're going to be tight, you got to back the Springboks there. But as it gets a bit looser, I agree that the Lions might have ascendancy. I love Sam Simmons coming off the bench. I think he is a phenomenal eighth man. And if the game's going to loosen up in the second half when he's on the field, we might have our hands full there. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But again, this will probably be treated as a test match, I'm sure, by both teams, especially in that first 20 to 30 minutes. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm going to be a bit biased and say, I think the Springbok loose trio will put their hand and put their stamp on it in that 30 minutes. And hopefully the pack can get the ascendancy. The scrum battle is going to be massive. As I mentioned, Sinclair out in the World Cup final. Kitshoff was probably chomping at the bit to get a piece of that, to just prove, that it wasn't a fluke or once off. So, yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the tight game. Scrums, Morse, lineouts. But yeah, that loose chill battle, whoever wins that battle tomorrow night between the loose cheers will probably win the game.
Sure. I know it's interesting that you'll say that, Ty, because I was just about to say that sort of in terms of the approach, I'd imagine test match, right? So it's going to be more about who's able to play in the right areas, right? And when we look at sort of the halfback pairing, right, we've got a very interesting mix in Faf de Klerk and a Mornay Steyn, right? Mornay Steyn has tended to like a scrum half who's more pragmatic, more conservative, right? Who can also equally alleviate the pressure. We saw at the Bulls with Ambrose Papier, it couldn't quite work, but it looked like $1 million once even Van Sale was playing. So, but equally, we've got the British and Irish Lions where we've got your Conor Murray and your Dan Biggar. Who do you think who do you think has got a better halfback pairing there and could possibly, dictate the tempo of the game?
Yeah, look, I think so. Faf and Steyn together. Firstly, Mornay Steyn playing. I think he's 37 years of age now. Playing against the Lions again, it's massive for him. But I think with that pairing, you'll probably find us will kick a bit. If you've looked at the Lions over the last how many weeks? 3 weeks now. They've kicked a hell of a lot of 9. They haven't kicked much of 10. So with Dan Biggar there, they probably do a lot of kicking as well. The one big thing, the difference I think could be. Is that Dan Biggar definitely spots space out wide and he uses his boot to get the ball there a lot more than Mornay Steyn does. Mornay Steyn does it every now and then, but I think Biggar is always looking for that cross kick, looking to get the ball out into space, and he's damn good at that. So I think if they do have to use that, that will be definitely in the Lions' advantage. But that being said, between those two guys, those 4 guys, whoever has the better kicking game, obviously it's going to be important for that team, especially with the forwards you've just spoken of. Whoever gets their forwards going forward will probably, be looking to take advantage of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see. Faf loves to have a bit of a snipe now and then as well. So he can bring a bit of that attacking flair that we might want when the game opens up. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they go. But a lot of kicking I can suspect to happen. Not much rugby to be played in your own 22.
Sure. Yeah, Dube, with that in mind, sort of a lot of kicking, right? A lot of territory gain. What do you make of the back threes, right? As a strength, and maybe Craig, you can also jump on this, right? We've got a South African team that's got Springbok, right? Who hasn't played in a while, but we've got arguably the best player in the world rugby at the moment, right? Jason Kobu's fantastic. I think he's had a fantastic year of rugby, and obviously the ever-experienced Willie Leroux at the back. So, yeah, what are just your thoughts in terms of the back three? Dube and Craig, you can have a crack at it after him.
Craig, would you like to take it on first?
Okay, yeah, Craig.
I think the structure for the Lions. If I had to start with the Lions, I think you've mentioned obviously the absence of Nkosi. He'll be really hungry and ready to go, but we know Test match rugby is about more than that hunger and the fine, the smaller things that needs to be done consistently well. So I'm a little bit worried about the contest in the air. I think the Lions with the outside backs that they've got, I think they'll dominate us in the air. Vili is consistent, but at times when it comes to sort of the big kicks and the most important things could tend to be inconsistent. Cheslin's obviously been quite reliable in the air, and we know that Nkosi has had his troubles in the air. So I think if we're going to go that way and we see the game nudging towards the aerial battle being as fundamental as the scrum or the line out, I think we're in a bit of trouble there. I think if we mustn't take for granted, as it's been pointed out, Biggar's kicking ability, and that he also creates that into an area. It's not just about the accuracy, but he actually converts that into an aerial test as well. Obviously, our guys are a little bit shorter, but I think the three back three of the Lions have been it's their best players in the air. So Hogg will probably play in the first test. He's also really good in the air, but he obviously adds a couple of other dimensions. But I think Gatlin has said, listen, they'll test us in the air. It doesn't matter which team they'll choose. Let's make sure that we've got our best 3 players that compete in the air on the field. And I'm not really concerned where I play them. I just want to make sure that all our kicks are protected and that we can launch potentially a counter with Bigger and Watson from there. So, they've normally played from 15-2 when they've got the ball in hand. I don't see them, with 15 as a distributor. I don't see them doing that with Watson. So I think a lot of the distribution and the sort of passing is left in Bigger's hands. And they've told the back 3, listen, we dominate them in the air, because that's an element you take away from the box. You impact their kicking game immediately if you make them doubt themselves in the air. Gatlin knows this from the Box will beat Wales in the semi-finals, but as soon as the kicking game went wrong a little bit, the Box had to readjust, and it was a close game. It could have gone either way. If Bigger had his kicking shoes on, that would have been a completely different game. So Gatlin knows, if I can impact the Box in the air, I've damaged the equivalent of their scrum and their line out. So that fears me a little bit. Obviously, ball in hand. Who else in the world would you want than Cheslin and Nkosi to have it, and Willie to have it? If we're going forward, and Billy plays behind the forwards and takes a backdoor pass, there's nobody in the world that does those things better than them. But if it's going to be a kicking game, we're in trouble.
Sure. Dube, anything to add on that?
You've pretty much stolen the words out of my mouth. But like you say, on attack, we've got no worries. Defensively, we all know it's going to be a huge kicking game. It's going to be a huge battle of the boot. Hopefully, Morningstain can control the game for us, and we can get in the right areas, like you mentioned earlier. Ty also mentioned that they'll have 2 fullbacks on the park. So that suggests already that it will be a kicking game. It will be a contest in the air. If you look at the World Cup, you look at Cheslin's fielding skills and Villiers' fielding skills. I know Villy made a couple of mistakes in the World Cup, but he was supposedly carrying an injury that might have caused that to happen. But we know that he's one of the safest ball fielders under the high ball. So I'm assuming he's 100% fit now, and there's nothing wrong with him. So if he's 100%, I do back him under the high ball. And Cheslin's fielding skills, look, he's not as tall as those other guys, but he is a very explosive guy who can get up in the air and compete for that ball. I haven't seen Nkosi much tested under the high ball, but I do believe that he will, with the guidance of Villy at the back, he'll feel a lot calmer. I mean, he's got World Cup experience. He's played in that box jersey before, so he'll be a lot calmer. And I really think we'll have the upper hand on attack. However, on defense, I do think the Lions will definitely have the upper hand in terms of taking the high ball.
Sure. Yeah, Ty. So often in these sort of close international games, the bench is where are the guys who usually come on and actually win the game. Just in a couple of sentences, who do you think has got the better bench, right? And which bench do you think will influence the game more?
I think the Lions bench for me is a little bit more dynamic in the sense of who they have. As I mentioned, Simmons before, Byrne shows a very good player. So I think they offer a bit. Makavunapolo coming off the bench, so something I think will help them. Kuni hasn't played for the Box for a while, so opportunity for him. But he hasn't really been in international rugby as much. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully, I'm sure he will do well. And then we have a couple of younger guys on the bench. So I think for me, the Lions bench is a little bit more dynamic than ours, especially as you mentioned, if the game opens up a bit more. But it will determine who's going forward. I think both benches, if you look at what's happened, both benches will want to make an impact. The Box bench, when they come on against Georgia, were phenomenal. They brought a different tempo. Lions bench, the second half against the Sharks, did the same thing. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think the series alone, when we get there, will be won or lost with that impact of that bench. So I think that's what they're both sort of going for.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. And I think as we close, Right. Craig, predictions, score predictions, and maybe your player to watch tomorrow, the player who you think will be the point of difference.
Okay, I'll mention one per team. I think I'm really excited about Joseph Dube. I think thoroughly deserved. And on the Lions side, I feel that the match winner for the Lions would be Sam Simmons. So he's going to be explosive when he comes off the bench.
Right.
Yeah, score. I think the Lions will take this one. I think the Lions will take this one, and I'm going to go for 36-27. 36-27.
Right, got that locked in. Dube? Dube?
I'm definitely going to have a biased comment here. I think we've got this. I think it might be if it's a tight game. I think it might be a tightly contested game. I think let's say something about I'd say 21-14. But if it's a loose game, I think we someone like Ches and Kobe might be. I mean, he's been phenomenal overseas. I mean, we've seen him playing at flank, even at fullback. He's been playing everywhere basically. So I really think someone like Kobe is someone to look out for in tomorrow's test.
Sure, Ty.
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna throw a span in the works here and say the Springboks. Let's have a look out for Morné Steyn. I think if he's good tomorrow, we'll win. If he's not good, I don't think we'll win. But I think he's going to be the key there. And then I'm going to say for the Lions, I think Mario Toji, he'll be very important. He's always so good if he controls things. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm probably going to say Lions maybe by 10. Just on the fact that if you look at the time they've had together, the fact they're playing for positions. They're probably gonna take it, and the second half, their bench for me is a little bit more explosive. But I hopefully the box proved me wrong.
Sure. Well, no, gentlemen, thank you once again for joining me. All right, and all those who are watching, thank you for watching and tuning in. All right, please do make sure that you join us tomorrow. Stevie P will be doing a watch along. SAA versus British and Irish Lions, and I think fantastic opportunities for a couple of the new Springboks, sort of young players. The Marcus Stardens, your versus Joseph Dube, I think is another player that was mentioned who I think is going to have a fantastic one. Also from Rinsburg, right? We haven't seen much of him in South African circles, right? So I'm interested to see what he will bring to the side. But thanks for tuning in. All right, please, if you haven't liked or subscribed, please do like and subscribe. And once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on. And do you enjoy your beers tomorrow as you watch the game? Hopefully you did stock up before, everything was shut down. But gents, once again, thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Cheers.
Thanks, gents.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So everyone else, we will see you tomorrow at 10 to 8. Right. Once again, thanks very much for keeping me company today. It's been a fantastic show. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't. All right. This is a platform where we just come together and chat about sport. All right. With the Olympics coming up, right, there's a lot more action to come. But for Mumbing Lukhanyo is the name. I thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you.